Welcome to the fourth episode of my podcast series, Kris Vanhaecht on Quality. For those of you just joining, I am a full professor in quality management at Leuven University. Glad you're here. Now, before diving into our topic, let me quickly revisit where we've been. If you've listened to the first 3 episodes, you'll remember our journey through the history of quality, the concept called the House of Trust, and a thoughtful discussion on human error. Each episode building a broader picture of what it takes to succeed while reducing risks. Today we'll go a step further. This time, we're tackling the concept of psychological safety, particularly in healthcare, a setting where team dynamics and trust can quite literally be life-saving. What's fascinating is how much healthcare teams can learn from high reliability organizations, sectors where operating under enormous risks is practically second nature, such as aviation, nuclear power, even military operations. These industries handle complexity with incredible precision, so their lessons are invaluable. To delve into this, I drew upon 3 pillars of insight. First, I had the privilege of speaking to Dr. Bart Van Daele, a renowned strategic healthcare consultant and executive hospital manager, and also a good friend. He was my first CEO I worked for. During an online seminar hosted by Doctors in Need, we had a 2-hour discussion. His extensive experience as a psychiatrist and strategic advisor gives unique depth to the discussion. Second, I leaned on a master's dissertation by my former student Anke van Kamp, a deep dive on psychological safety across industries, producing some stunning insights. And third, we cannot do justice to the topic without acknowledging the groundbreaking contributions of Professor Amy Edmonson from Harvard. Her research has fundamentally reshaped the field, and I'm thrilled to have finally met her last year in person after studying her work for years. So, let's set our sights on the foundations of psychological safety, how this concept shapes our teams, drives innovation, and ultimately impacts outcomes. So, let me start with a grounding question. What exactly is psychological safety? Professor Amy Edmonson at Harvard defines it as a shared belief within a team that the environment is safe for taking interpersonal risks. In everyday terms, this means being able to ask questions some might call dumb, admit your mistakes, or offer new ideas without fear of ridicule, punishment, or judgment, a sort of safety net for your thoughts and contributions. It's a simple yet powerful concept. Historically, psychological safety was first discussed in the 1960s by scholars like Edgar Schein and Warren Bennis. They argued that this safety was crucial to help people adapt to organizational changes without feeling defensive. Yet, it wasn't until the 1990s with Edmondson's research that the term truly gained traction. She brought the concept into the modern workplace, where innovation and teamwork are essential. Fast forward to 2015, Google embarked on their massive study called Project Aristotle. Out of 180 teams and over 37,000 employee responses, they explored what makes teams successful. Surprisingly, it wasn't just about having the smartest minds or the most experience. The strongest factor was psychological safety. No matter how talented a group might be, if they lack this foundational aspect, their performance suffers. Openness and trust were the driving forces of the top performing teams. One of the most striking examples came from Edmondson's own study on medication errors in hospitals. Initially, she assumed that the worst performing teams had the most reported mistakes. Instead, she found that the best teams, the high performers, actually reported more mistakes. Why? Because they were psychologically safe. They felt comfortable admitting errors, which allowed them to learn and improve constantly. In contrast, teams with low safety simply didn't report, even when problems occurred. This finding completely reshaped the narrative around error reporting in workplaces. Amy outlines these insights beautifully in her book, The Fearless Organization. She explains how fostering an environment where risk-taking is encouraged leads to innovation and strong collaboration. Her latest book, Fail Good, takes this concept further by exploring intelligent failure, how organizations can learn effectively from mistakes without devastating consequences. From a practical standpoint, psychological safety isn't just about avoiding fear or conflict. It's about creating a climate where creativity flourishes. Studies consistently show that psychologically safe teams are more innovative and produce better results. Leadership plays a key role here, since leaders set the tone for how openness and challenges are handled. Whether it's in healthcare, aviation, or tech, the most effective leaders model this behavior, creating ripple effects across their teams. Reflecting on this, Dr. Bart Van Daele shared a remarkable observation during our recent webinar. He raised a question to the audience. Have you ever been in a team where asking questions or being yourself felt unsafe? The responses were staggering. A large proportion openly admitted to experiencing environments where fear stifled their voices. It's chilling to think how common this is, particularly in hierarchical settings like hospitals. If healthcare teams lack psychological safety, the repercussions on patient outcomes can be severe. And this issue pushed me to think, where can we draw lessons from? What can healthcare learn from industries that handle complexity with precision, like aviation or nuclear power? That's where Anke van Kamp's groundbreaking dissertation comes in. Together with my project manager Charlotte, also known as Charlie, she conducted an extraordinary investigation involving 15 experts from various high-reliability organizations. These are industries where operations have to be flawless because the margin for error is non-existent. But more on that in the next chapter. Building on what we discussed in the last chapter, let's now turn to some fascinating findings from high-reliability organizations, industries that operate under extreme pressure, where even a single error can have catastrophic consequences. And here is where Anke and Charlie's work shine. Based on the views from 15 human resources experts from sectors like aviation, special forces, and even the culinary world, the insights they uncovered are nothing short of remarkable. For example, in aviation, Anke interviewed a respondent from air traffic control who put it bluntly, "We aren't behind a shop counter where a mistake can be corrected. No, here we're responsible for people's lives." When suggesting the wrong turn to a plane, there's no undoing that mistake. It's not a refund situation. And that's why communication is absolutely essential there. Every single team member has to feel that they can speak up. Everyone is an essential link in the chain. And I mean, if one link falters, the entire system might collapse. Now let's shift gears to defense and the special forces. Here's where the concept of moral courage really stood out. Within these elite teams, speaking up isn't just encouraged, it's a duty. A respondent highlighted that it takes immense courage to flag issues, especially in high-stakes scenarios, but the team climate has to support this. And in these environments, authority doesn't operate freely. Everyone must have both respect and trust for each other. Remember our podcast on the House of Trust. Without these core elements, the stress and pressure can spiral into costly mistakes. It's, well, quite thought-provoking when you apply this to healthcare. Anke also brought up an interesting, almost unexpected sector, the culinary world. Think of those kitchens we've all seen on TV where shouting and ranting seem like part of the culture. Yet, Yelling doesn't foster growth and certainly doesn't promote safety. She mentioned how some key players in the culinary sector look at near misses, situations where mistakes were narrowly avoided. An environment where mistakes and even close calls can be discussed openly without fear of humiliation is paramount. Teams are encouraged to learn from those errors to prevent disaster, and at the core of all this is psychological safety. Across every one of Anka's and Charlie's interviews, the importance of this concept repeatedly came up. It's about creating a no-blame culture, or more ambitiously, what's often called a just culture. People feel safe to report issues or voice concerns, knowing they won't face retribution. But, and this is crucial, it's not just one person's job to create that safety. It's a team-wide effort, a continuous process that doesn't just stop. As one respondent from the chemical industry aptly put it, this isn't about baking biscuits. Mistakes here can't be undone. Success lies in proactive avoidance and close collaboration, whether it's aviation, defense, or a high-pressure kitchen. The lesson is clear. Trust and respect lay the foundation, but psychological safety takes ongoing work. Without it, teams can't perform under pressure, and they certainly can't learn from their mistakes. I was working on this podcast while visiting Vancouver. I am here for a keynote on the Quality Forum. And in the hotel, I met a young lady and her really funny best friend. She was a pilot in corporate aviation in Canada, and she explained me about her work. Lots of similarities with our world in healthcare. Crew, resource management, high complexity, lots of working hours, fatigue, egos, pride, striving for excellence. Or about the interesting indicator of 12 hours between your last drink and your next flight. I will remember that example in my next class in medical school. Okay, back to the theory on psychological safety now, but you can understand it was an interesting meeting with that young pilot. Earlier, we touched on the importance of psychological safety, but achieving it successfully isn't as simple as just creating a safe environment. It's also about setting high standards. Amy Edmonson's model of the performance zone really encapsulates this balance. It emphasizes that effective teams navigate between 4 key zones: comfort, apathy, anxiety, and lastly, the most valuable one, the learning or high performance zone. Now let me unravel this further, based on the discussions I had about it with Bart. The comfort zone is where you find high psychological safety, but low standards. People feel supported, but there's no real demand for excellence. It's a nice place to stay, but it's not conducive for growth. Then there's the apathy zone, low psychological safety paired with low standards. This, as you can imagine, is where disengagement runs rampant and people simply go through the motions, right? And then you've got the anxiety zone. This is low safety and high standards. And it's honestly a disaster waiting to happen. People are stressed, afraid to speak up, and, well, they're cornered. Burnout. Almost inevitable here. Trust me, I've seen it firsthand in some hospital teams. And that brings us to where we truly want to be. The learning or high performance zone. In this space, there's balance. People feel psychologically safe, yes, but they're also challenged to meet ambitious goals. It's where the magic happens, where creativity, collaboration, and innovation flourish. Getting to this zone, however, requires leaders to fine-tune their approach. It's not intuitive for many teams, and that's the trick, isn't it? It's tough for managers. They need to foster a sense of safety while not dropping the bar too low. Without this balance, teams inevitably drift to the wrong side of Edmondson's model. Keeping both elements aligned, that's easier said than done. The question then becomes, how do we operationalize this? How do we guide teams towards this ideal balance? Well, One way is to bring the conversation to light, talk openly with teams about where they stand. To do that effectively, you need an assessment tool. A scale to measure psychological safety might just help facilitate these important discussions. Imagine sitting down with a team armed with clear yet simple metrics that illuminate their current experience. It opens the door to constructive dialogue. But designing such a tool isn't straightforward. What should it really measure? And do you need precise details, or can a few pointed questions serve as the entry point? Measuring psychological safety, now that I think is quite a challenge. How do you pin down something so interpersonal and fluid? The truth is, you likely don't need every intricate detail. What's more critical is having a way to start meaningful conversations. A simple set of guiding questions can do wonders for managers looking to dig deeper and open dialogues about team dynamics. One wonderful resource is Amy Edmonson's 7-item scale. It's straightforward, but incredibly illuminating. You ask questions like, if you make a mistake on this team, is it often held against you? Or, are team members able to bring up tough issues? Or a third is, do people on this team sometimes reject others for being different? The answers to these questions can tell you so much more than just data points. They uncover unspoken truths about how that team operates. Now, this tool isn't a miracle solution that fixes everything overnight. Instead, it's a starting line, a baseline to understand where a team stands and set the direction for improvement. And there's a deeper philosophy here too. The team is defined by where the action unfolds. I actually had the opportunity to ask Amy Edmonson this directly when we met last year. I said, Amy, what exactly do you mean by a team? Her response was simple and profound. Kris, she said, it's where the action takes place. And frankly, what she really meant was, it's where the shit happens. A team or group could mean many things. A clinical microsystem, a small nursing team on a specific ward, or even a board of directors running an organization. In these diverse contexts, psychological safety isn't just a nebulous concept, it's a tangible need. And when measured thoughtfully, it reveals both the strengths and stress points that determine how effective that team can be. All right, so let's dive right into what Anke van Kamp's interviews revealed. 6 key initiatives that can elevate psychological safety in any team. These aren't abstract ideas. They're practical steps that organizations have already tested and validated. First up is feedback. And here's the interesting bit. Feedback isn't just about job performance. It's equally about how people collaborate. And it has to flow in all directions. Not just top down, but also bottom up and even sideways. Think of 360-degree feedback. It ensures everyone has the opportunity to hear and be heard, building mutual understanding. The second initiative focuses on briefings. Now, these are much more than post-meeting summaries or check-ins. They're opportunities to reflect. What went well, what didn't, and why. Briefings help teams extract lessons and bring everyone in regardless of rank or role. I mean, these don't even have to be formal. One example Anke brought up was from fire stations, where briefings often happen over an informal lunch or while out on a walk. Short, valuable, no pressure. Now, the third initiative is something many organizations struggle with: reporting systems, a system where team members can report mistakes or even near misses safely without fear of backlash. Believe it or not, sometimes just having a simple physical Dropbox for concerns works maybe better than complicated software. Let's move to initiative 4, communication campaigns. These are subtle yet powerful reminders of shared values and team spirit. Picture this. compliment cards, or small tokens of appreciation. These small gestures create a climate of positivity and underscore the importance of psychological safety. Next, the fifth initiative, confidence. Sometimes, no matter how open a briefing or feedback loop may be, people need the assurance of confidentiality. Knowing there's a trusted person, legally protected, who'll listen without judgment can make all the difference. It allows team members to speak their truths without fear of retribution. And finally, initiative 6, wellness activities. No, that is not only about green tea and saunas. You might think this tip leans a bit, obvious, but organizations in high-pressure industries make conscious, regular efforts to encourage well-being. Whether it's a yoga session, a quick mindfulness exercise, or just a casual lunch walk, these activities help teams recharge, focus, and trust each other more. They might seem small, but their impact? Massive. Together, these 6 initiatives fundamentally work to sustain a blame-free, open culture. But here's an important challenge to remember. Implementing them isn't a quick fix. It's a process. A culture of safety takes time and consistent effort to grow. And honestly, it needs funding too. It always does. So, do we need some conclusions on psychological safety? As we approach the conclusion of this seminar on psychological safety, I want to shift our focus to something practical. Takeaways, if you will. Together with Bart, we've crafted a set of 10 essential tips aimed at fostering psychological safety within teams and organizations. These are grounded in years of research by pioneers like Professor Amy Edmonson, insights from Anka's dissertation in collaboration with Charlie, and Bart's extensive experience as a psychiatrist and strategic consultant. These tips also arise from my own reflections, discussions I've had with students, healthcare managers, and policymakers over the years, and even based on the discussions with my lovely 17-year-old daughter, Manon, my princess, who is really interested in this topic and will start next year at Leuven University to study psychology. Wow, I think the next years will be really a bless for me to learn from her insights. So, here they are. First, show vulnerability. This means being okay with admitting you're not perfect. Second, encourage open dialogue. Remember, as leaders, try not to start meetings by stating your opinions first. Let others shape the conversation. Third, respond positively to feedback. Model yourself as a leader hungry to learn every day. Fourth, nurture a blame-free culture. Switch the spotlight from placing fault to understanding what can be learned. Fifth, always recognize the contributions of others. Let people know they shine. This fosters mutual respect and builds stronger teams. Moving on to number 6, be approachable. And I don't mean just keeping your office door open. Make your conversations meaningful and honest. Number 7, lead truly inclusive meetings. This means being mindful about humor or remarks that could alienate. Keep them respectful, never strange or divisive. 8th, train yourself in active listening. If you're present, really be there. Put down distractions, close your laptops. Emails can wait. 9th, address rude or uncivil behavior immediately. Don't let it fester. Unspoken tensions undermine team trust. And finally, number 10, promote team learning. Share your experiences, ask others to do the same, and celebrate the learning process. We all grow minute by minute, hour by hour, and with these tips in mind, I want to extend my deepest thanks. Bart, Your practical insights have been incredibly illuminating today. Anchor, with the support of Charlie, and Amy Edmonson, your work continues to inspire so many of us. To our listeners, I hope you leave not just with knowledge, but with the courage to make your teams and workplaces more open, trusting, and innovative. To my students and my team, don't hesitate to share your ideas, even when I'm not at my best, because truthfully, I'm still learning too, especially about creating psychological safety. Just interrupt me if I'm talking too much. I really want that we are equal in the team. Never forget that. That is what we learned from Project Aristotle, wasn't it? So, a big thank you to all people listening to this episode for your time and interest. Let's keep moving forward together, and I'll see you soon in our next episode of this podcast series on quality.